Hello, everyone. I'm Jean-Claude BeyondMystic, and welcome to this deep woo-woo episode entitled Simulated Reality with my friend SOLRETA. You can find her on YouTube here at SOLRETA Ontario and also on our website at solreta.com. SOLRETA, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Yeah, really good. Thank you so much for having me. And it's so lovely to be back here. It's funny because the feeling that I get whenever we chat is just like play. It's just so much fun and so spontaneous. And you and I just kind of go, let's talk about this, let's talk about that. Like we never really deeply plan. It just organically happens. And I love that space.
I love it too. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. This is a bit of an impromptu show on a Tuesday. There's so much happening, of course, this week, and I have like 3 or 4 shows a day on the production schedule. Of course, there's this banking crisis happening that is eating up a lot of my time here. A lot of the audience members are nervous with all of those changes coming up, and we're trying to all navigate our way through of that. And I know you're getting the same also on your beautiful community at solreta.com here in terms of the bookings. But first, let me welcome everybody in the live chat. Thank you so much here for joining us here tonight on this Tuesday show. We're going to take some questions if we can here during the show, guys. So if you have any for SOLRETA or myself, please put them in high caps, and I'll try to start them and bring up the comments as we go along here during the show. SOLRETA, before we start, I just mentioned in the offset here, there's a lot going on in the background. Of course, there's a lot of nervous, frantic energies going on. But before we get into this week's weird energies, what have you been seeing collectively with your personal bookings here in the last, let's say, 2 or 3 weeks? Let's set that up for the audience members. What were they going through? And perhaps how is that setting the stage here for the birthing process we seem to be entering ourselves here maybe this week and also next week as we hit the equinox season? Go ahead.
Yeah, and I just picked cards while we were just chatting then as well, just to have a look into, what I was saying to you just backstage before about what's happening in higher realms and council. So I won't get into that just yet, but the cards say exactly what I was just telling you about. So I only just pulled cards on it this morning because I had to check in with council this morning. But what I'm seeing with clients is we're getting not only the end of kind of like the persecutions, the witch trials and the fears around stepping into power, and a lot of kind of like vows or like contract revoking or contracts being destroyed to do with giving our power away, or it not being safe to stand in our power. So we're deleting, decreating, destroying a lot of that side of things. But more at the moment, what started to step in just over the last probably month or so is we've got the other multi-dimensional versions of self. So say, for example, us in Earth Realm and then us in other dimensions are actually coming in and contacting this version of us. So usually you would see like a lot more guides around, but what I'm seeing at the moment is the other versions of ourselves are making contact. So it's a really interesting parallel reality time. And what they're sort of doing is ushering exactly what Jerry just said, the birthing process.
Right.
So yeah, our other versions of self are trying to shift us into an aligned higher frequency with the best possible timeline. Hey, John. And what we're also seeing too is the clearing of anything that might be vibrating in this other past life or multidimensional life. So you can kind of term it in both ways. But if we kind of think about it like in Doctor Strange, where there's parallel realities and multidimensional timelines, these other versions of self are going through a purging and going through where they're releasing anything that they no longer need to hold. They're also helping when they've sort of raised their frequency vibration, it's also helping pull us up. So we're seeing transformation on multiple dimensions, not just this Earth realm. So it's really exciting to look into that. And what we often see is as soon as we connect with a client and we start to tap into this other version of self, so we're seeing more off-world scenarios, situations, as well as what we would call past life in Earth realities. But what we're seeing when we clear it is it's usually some kind of emotion or thing that we've gone through in a karmic side of things that's imprinted karmically on this realm, this reality. So there's a likeness to the emotions and different things that we're going through. So it's funny because I always hear from my clients, that's so weird that that's come up because that's what I'm experiencing in this lifetime. And so when we clear it in the other lifetime and we clear it in this Earth realm, it's kind of shifting that resistance and shifting that frequency. So a lot of my sessions over probably like the last year and a half have been massive clearing, as well as like, looking into different multiple dimensions and the psychic side of things, and looking into cards and quantum field with the aura drawings that I do. But so much of it is clearing so that we free up that that energy, ready for this birthing process we're going through now.
Okay. I love it. And so you just mentioned Doctor Strange, of course, and it makes me think of something here. In this particular, I'm not sure that's the right movie poster, but the one about the dimensions, he meets himself and of course other dimensions, or other dimensions come to meet him, and in some cases they're kind of fighting each other. And I wanted to bring that up as a theme because for a lot of us right now going through this process, we are, as Cliff is saying, we're facing the precipice. If you guys go watch his last video on his BitChute, not just on the economic front here and the whole changing of our world order, if you want to call it that, but also us on a personal level. And we're getting hints and clues, whether that's seeing numbers on the clock, whether that's seeing synchronicities of people coming into your lives and all that, or also maybe thoughts and intuition. And for some of us right now, we're so busy because of the fear, the uncertainty, the doubt that's being pushed out in the mainstream news, and perhaps from the frantic energy of the people around us who are just waking up, that we're so busy that we're kind of like, when we're getting hit by this intuition and our other versions of ourselves trying to get our attention, we're kind of like, not now, we're busy. Not now, we're busy, right? Are you experiencing that? Are your clients also experiencing that, first? And two, if yes, how do we kind of slow down here and realize who's trying to talk to us, which part of ourselves are trying to talk to us, what message trying to be conveyed to us, and how we can connect to that, even though the noise is so loud right now and it's so frantic around us? How do we connect and maximize here these messages that are coming in? SOLRETA.
I love that. That's such a great question. And I just saw also Tarot Destiny put up, is it possible to unlock these past life, gifts and talents and bring them forth? That's 100% what we're doing in the sessions that I'm doing at the moment, is we're freeing up a lot of, whether it's, fear around using your gifts or being seen, because a lot of starseeds are really going through deprogramming of childhood things about being not seen, not heard, really sort of, stepping into this boldness and stepping into this mission that we're on down here in Earth Realm. But where you were saying, like, what is the best way to kind of connect into these other versions of self? We have the internal guidance system that's built in. So when we look at our anatomy, on top of the pineal gland, there's a little fleshy kind of tuning fork-like thing that it kind of helps us with divine vibrational resonance. So when we're kind of bombarded and hit by the overstimulation that we get within this reality, it's keeping us in this kind of like fight or flight response. So we all need to get back into theta. One way that you can do it is even just to, when you close your eyes, try and roll your eyes a little bit back behind your eyelids, or you can even sort of focus on the ceiling and use a hypnotherapy technique where we count 3, 2, 1 and eyes closed. Doing this over and over will drop you naturally more into a theta state. So when our brain waves go into theta, we're actually kind of calming the nervous system, which means that we're more open, more receptive to receiving higher dimensional information. So I find even popping a hand on the heart, one on the belly, really just closing my eyes and feeling into my nervous system, because it is a messenger. So when we tap into this, we're also connected to the vagus nerve, which is connected to all the chakras. So we're picking up on that extra dimensional or multi-dimensional information. So that's one of the best ways that we can start to get synchronized with this higher version of self. The higher version of self is the one receiving the information from the quantum, which is also, the spiritual body of our aura, where we pick up a lot of this information. So when I'm reading for a client, and I'll just show you, for example, and I'm doing, an aura drawing, this is their quantum information that's available. So you can actually see into that realm, and you can see like all of the different bodies and information sitting there. So we can pick up a lot from that.
Well, that's really exciting. And of course, very soon here, we're going to have this new product offering, a unique product offering from SOLRETA on the website of Maison Jupiter, along with Julie Meg and Sophie and their products there. So we're very excited to put that together. Julie's working hard in the background, putting all of the graphics. And of course, SOLRETA is working hard to produce this brand new concept for you guys on that website. It's going to have to do something with Starseed Origins, as well as your mission in this particular life. So we're really excited. Stay tuned for that. Maybe the next couple of weeks here, we'll be ready for that.
So excited.
So excited. Yes, of course. This is the post I was looking for. Yes, a multiverse of madness. And you just mentioned something about putting your hand on your heart to get into that frequency, to hear your higher self or the other versions of yourself trying to speak to you, whether you believe in the Joe Dispenza process of quantum jumping to your other selves, or whether you understand the triune nature of the human experience and how we have 12 doers inside of that category, and all of them living perhaps simultaneously. We are all bombarded with all of these thoughts, ideas, and intuitions. But at the same time as that is occurring, SOLRETA, the machine here, the matrix, is also pumping down thoughts into your brain, telling you that everything's safe, that your money is safe in the bank, of course, and the products out there to put up your arms are perfectly safe and effective. And so you're getting all of this at the same time to kind of confuse you, and to, it's safe to stay in your job. You understand what I'm saying here. I don't want to get too much. Get another strike here on YouTube. So what do we do for that? So yes, being a hand on your heart, being connected with yourself is very important in terms of hearing your highest self. But how do we maybe push out or put a barrier to a lot of that negativity and those false thoughts and intuitions coming in from the matrix? How do you deal with that, SOLRETA?
Yeah, so I guess that, we can look at it as the programmed version of reality, the matrix. So if we're looking at it from our own personal version or our own view, it's a very different energy from what is being programmed, what is being dictated to us. The things that we should kind of like fall into energetically is sort of like a bit of a trap. Or if you look at it directly related to the wording that's used, if we're talking about like sovereign law, things like that, just some of the words like mortgage and other things, if you look at like the Latin origins, we see that the dead ends, or, it's for the dead or for non-live people. So if we look into the language that's programmed into this matrix, it's not really one that's for a live living person. And It's not really one that, resonates with a lot of our audience too. So the way that I kind of, I guess, remove myself from that situation is to really kind of have to positively talk to myself. And what I mean by this is, saying things like, I get to create my own reality, and really kind of like focusing and visualizing on what I want to have happen in my life, but also on a very physical level, because we are living in the 3D. You still have to kind of like occupy and work within the 3D realm. So the more that you can kind of govern yourself and work for yourself. So we're going to be seeing like a lot more entrepreneurs that come into, I guess, society and I guess start to build their dreams, because they're no longer going to fit within like the slave race mentality. So it'll be like a different evolution of wake up stage. This is probably a good time to talk about my little trip to higher council this morning and having a look at things from the galactic realm side of things, peering into Earth, and talking about like what it's like looking at it from their vantage point, from a higher dimensional space, and what they see actually happening on Earth. So at the moment, and I will show the cards in a second, but what I was seeing with a quick check-in was just that space in higher council. And it is very much like something, out of Star Wars, where you see like a lot of chairs. It's a round circular room that I quite often visit. I see it's like the floor looks more kind of like constellations and like stars. So it's almost some kind of like an invisible type space. I don't feel it's like really held with like walls like we have here. Yet you see kind of like columns, and you still see chairs and different things. So it's existing like on a higher dimension. But what I saw when I was looking down,
so when you attend the Jedi Council meeting, you're kind of like that guy over there. You're kind of blue, transparent in your energy.
a little bit more solid, but yeah, it's that side of things where it's discussing on like what's happening in different realms. So there is so much attention on the earth realm at the moment, and the viewpoint of when they're looking in, because not just in like high council, but also like working in temples on Sirius, where we actually will scire and look into water, because water is an interdimensional portal or a gateway. So we have these specific pools that are, I guess, around some of the temples on the star system Sirius. So when we look in from that point of view, or we're looking in from a higher council point of view, we're kind of seeing the earth people run around a little bit like headless chickens. And it's kind of, and it's funny, I heard you say this expression of Chicken Little, the sky is falling, I think on one of the recent shows that you just did, talking about the crumbling situation that we're seeing with, it's hard to not flag anything at the moment, I think. So yeah, what I was seeing when I was looking in was that there was the programmed version of reality with the people that are trying to keep things trapped within the matrix. Then I was seeing people come out sort of like unplugged, but there was like a frantic nature of a newborn kind of waking up and not sort of knowing like where they are, what's happening. Oh my God, like things don't make sense anymore. I was seeing kind of like reality fractures. So we're seeing some souls at the moment that going through a reality fracture, sometimes you'll have what's kind of like a bit of a soul split type energy. And this is sometimes where other negative entities can come in to kind of harvest or hijack. So at the moment, if we can kind of like help hold that frequency of protection around the planet while it's going through this birthing stage, that would be really good. The other thing that I was also seeing was really projecting and choosing to, I guess, those that are in the audience, and there's so many that we have with the Beyond Mystic family, if we can choose to hold the vision of reality that we want to manifest in the world, and we see it as that's the way that we get to choose, that's the way that we live out, that's, that one that we're bringing towards us. So yes, it's good to understand and to know that the other old system is crumbling, but it's part of the birthing process. So we're seeing a lot of spirit at the moment, kind of in the midwifery process of things.
Would you say, okay, so let me bring this up again here just for the imagery's sake. And I think it's important because for a lot of us, we might be imagining things and we might think we're imagining it, but we're actually there having these meetings in some of these councils. Of course, this was the Jedi one, and this is from Green Lantern. But are you feeling, SOLRETA, when you're in this council, that there's a new energy of sorts? Because for the longest time, the people who have access to this council have been a little bit maybe dismayed by the lack of action or the lack of speed in which maybe some interventions are happening here on the planet. Are you seeing now that perhaps these councils are moving in a different direction, seeing a little bit more urgency in the matter than perhaps they were before? And if so, how would you describe the changing of the guards and that narrative from the old council feelings and textures to what perhaps you're feeling now when you're attending?
Yeah, so we're seeing a lot more interaction happen even in the angelic realms. So there's a lot more communication. There's a lot more of them being able to step in and assist. But we know that it also is about, asking. So we need to ask for their help. We need to ask for them to step in and assist. On the galactic side of things, it has been where they've stepped back and they've had to let humanity wake up for themselves. And we've seen an exact reflection of this in a lot of Beyond Mystic soul family, trying to wake up family, trying to wake up friends and talk to them about what's going on. It's a little bit where we actually had to just step back and just let it happen. So that is also, continuing to happen with this wake up journey, this process. The other thing too, with like the with the angelic realms and that, what I've also seen in a couple of client sessions and some meditations and things that I've had, I kept seeing a crystal above people's crown chakra. Now, I've only seen it a couple of times, but whenever I connected to this crystal, angels would appear. And Spirit told me, type in the word, I think it was Enochian realms. And what came up on YouTube was a video talking about a mathematician, John Dee, who was working with, I think it was an alchemist, and they were looking in how can
and
you
the royalties. Yeah, go ahead.
exactly.
Yeah.
So interesting. But what he said was there was an archangel Uriel that appeared to him, gave him a crystal, and said this is used to communicate and connect with the angelic realms. So what was weird was I knew nothing of that. I just kept seeing this crystal above client's crown chakra. And when I connected with it, saw the angelics come in. So they're able to really come back and try and bring that message of, I guess, the angelic realms and how they're here to help guide and connect with humanity at the moment. I like to also put out there for with anyone connecting with beings or, you know, other dimensionals or energies or entities, always ask if they have your best and highest good at heart, or if they love you unconditionally. It is an absolute must, universal law for working with positive ETs, positive, you know, other dimensional beings. I always will ask 3 times as well. Oh yeah, good point, John. Thank you. So yeah, please remember to like, share, subscribe. We love it over here on Beyond Mystic when you guys do that. But I will show from higher council point of view the cards that came out, and it does show a lot of the turmoil that they're feeling for us on the earth realm experience going through this. Now, remember, we have a lot of soldiers on the ground. And what I mean by this is there's a lot of star seeds like myself and like a lot of the Beyond Mystic family that are also used to working on this from a higher level, but we're down here in earth realm. So it is time to kind of, you know, hit that magic button to activate, to really step into your role. And that's what I'm also a facilitator with in my readings at the moment, is supporting and assisting you guys to really have that confidence to step forward on your mission. But yeah, I'll show you the cards there. It really does demonstrate what we're seeing. So we've got a lot of emotional turmoil. We've got a lot of people feeling that they're kind of like trapped within the matrix or within the financial system. This is also like we need to purge this sort of emotional energy. And we literally see the matrix busting open. So for some, they might sort of stay a little bit more stuck and trapped. But for what we're seeing happen, especially like with the banking system and that, it's going to be that thing that sort of blows the cap or, you know, blows the top on things. So a lot of people will be reevaluating what is important to them. It's not just going to be like about the financial side of things. It will be about like what you're doing for work, what makes your soul happy. It'll really kind of blow open the slave matrix is the way that Spirit is showing things. We have the 4 of disc as well, which this is the card of power. It's the sun and Capricorn energy. But what we see come in right at the top in this little, you know, this is earth, air, fire, and water, surrounded by water. And we see this tiny little window at the top of the matrix. So this is like what one of the alphabet, I guess, government sectors, I'll just say it like that. It starts with the C. You know, they talk about the gateway. And they talk about, like, with their research with the Monroe Institute, actually getting out of this gateway. To me, the gateway for like the last 20 something years has been shown to me around the pineal gland and around our ears. It's around the psychic senses. So what we're seeing at the moment is us coming up out of the dredges of the matrix to connect to the higher version of self, to connect to these other multidimensional versions. This is part of how we like break free from this matrix. So at the same time, with all the craziness going on that we're seeing, it's very exciting for those that realize and connect that there's a higher plan that's also happening. So with that birthing, cracking open of the egg process, we're also realizing that we can breathe, that we can connect to things of a more unseen nature. Where this will go for a lot that are working with this higher level of consciousness is my Prince of Cups. For me, he's the shaman that walks between both worlds. Mm-hmm. So at the moment, we're like that baby deer that's just been born, just kind of fallen out or unplugged from the matrix, and, you know, the waters that are going everywhere. It's not going to take us long to kind of get our legs. And when we look at things from an Aboriginal cultural perspective too, it's almost as if the change will feel like it's happened overnight or within an instant. So it's almost feeling that we always have been this way. We always have been these spiritual warriors, or had that connection to source. So that would be the focal point to really focus on and remember right now, is just to kind of, yes, we are in physical reality, but we're also connected to this higher multidimensional space. And that will be what kind of cracks it wide open.
Wow, that's fascinating. Thank you so much. I'm gonna have to go listen to that again, man. It's very profound what you said there, and there's more connected to what you just said. It's like the sacred geometry, just sacred geometry coming in to what you're saying. Let me backtrack a little bit here. You said something about the words earlier in this matrix and how basically it's all derived from and for the death cult, where you're talking about mortgage, mort in French, death, in other words like that. And we need to choose our words right now. And as the title suggests of this, and people might not know, but SOLRETA's been with me since day one on this channel. For some of you, of course, you're new to the channel, you don't know SOLRETA yet, but she's been on almost again since day one on the first channel. And this particular series we put together was to discuss themes like we're discussing today. The fact that, yeah, we're in a simulated reality, and that would suggest that if we have the keys to the simulation, meaning the words and the spell casting, we can change that simulated reality for ourselves. And this is why we spend so much time and effort, energy trying to share and have these conversations with you here in the audience. So there's a couple of things there. So you gave the warning about speaking positively to yourself as opposed to using the words of the matrix. In Kung Fu, when we do the Firewalk seminars, we always do this first meditation for at least 12 hours before the firewalking. And it has something to do with creating and listening and manifesting a syntax of success. So I can do this. Like, if you can do it, I can do it, right? So putting all that positivity into what is possible, as opposed to what the matrix keeps putting you in the box and saying is not possible, right? So that's very important. Now, in terms of the angelic realm, I brought up the video you mentioned earlier, the Enochian timelines and the language, specifically relating to the angelic realm here. And I wanted to give a caveat here because for most of the people coming at this from a religion point of view, they'll look at their angels as perhaps their guides, their maybe their ancestors, or maybe even on the spiritual protection kind of plane. Now, I understand that coming from religion myself as a younger individual, but Cliff High has been putting a lot of thought, energy, and research into the Talmud, the Zohar, and the Torah. And we're going back into these older ancient texts, and we're realizing that the El in angel and all of these words are associated with the Elohim, the Anunnaki, some of those aliens, negative races that came here to enslave the population. So when I see comments in the chat saying, hey, I'm calling on my angels for help, Siobhan was mentioning that earlier, you have to be very careful on what you're calling into when you're using those words. And for most of us, and even myself, Siobhan, I see myself saying that in French sometimes, and I have to catch myself, be very precise here, because there is, again, here a trap door, just like there is in the languages that we use in our day-to-day life that trap us into this negativity and this control matrix. Any further thoughts to that before I move to the next segment on the angels and how to really watch what you're calling for and the practices that you use, maybe not in words, but in intention and feeling and in frequency, to associate your true meaning to those words, where you're taking control of that simulation and of that nomenclature? What would you say to the audience, SOLRETA?
Yeah, and oh my God, there's like so many things that you're talking about that I'm like,
I know it's going down in my head at light speed. I'm trying to get it all
I
out.
love it because we're on such like a beautiful, just divine resonance with what you're talking about, what I've been seeing. So with the firewalk and everything too, that really is getting yourself like primed and in that state. So we need to let go of old subconscious fears, old subconscious programs, prime to do that firewalk as well. And I'm seeing that come up for so many of my clients. We're in priming state now, where we're letting go of all of the old belief systems and we're priming for this new reality. The funny thing is the new reality will feel like it's always been, it's always existed. And so using language like this too will also help us to gain that comfortability within that. But in regards to, calling on angels and things like this, always use the statement for my best and highest good, and only working with those that love me unconditionally. So we also want to be frequency specific. So if anything does come in that feels like it's not of a loving vibration or feels like it's of a neutral or trickster vibration, you don't even want to work with that. You only want to work with those that love you unconditionally, have your best and highest good at heart. What I forgot to say was we're also seeing like the ET side of things heat up when it comes to UFOs. So not just with what we're seeing in the news, even like Valentine's Day, my partner and I were down at the river eating some beautiful Thai food, which is a nice little tradition that we started in lockdown. You know, instead of going to a restaurant, get some takeaway, go sit in nature. We had probably about 50 UFOs fly over us. And it was just like this intergalactic highway. It's funny because he, you know, even though he sees things like that, it's like, he's like, oh, but I want to believe. And, you know, you have people that doesn't matter how many they see, they're like, yeah, but I just want to know. It's like they want to be picked up on a physical craft, taken on board and introduced. But that night with seeing so many, he's like, oh my God, they're actually real. Like this is happening. So I am seeing, you know, a shift with, I guess, the amount of UFOs that we're seeing.
And it's okay, it's just not just you. Even the advanced warning radar and detection systems we have here in North America reported that this last month we've seen a double in activity than the month prior, and the month prior was double the month before that. So there's a huge uptick, as you're saying here, of all of this activity. Now, whether or not how do I say this on YouTube? That is also going to be used and detracted and thwarted into this blue beam kind of scare tactic here of an invasion. We shall see. But the whole point of having this conversation is for us to walk away from that predisposed engineering our body of being what would be the word? Xenophobic, I guess, would be the best way of fearing what we don't know or what is different than us as a human race, to really go inside here in our discernment to decide if what we're seeing in front of us here is actually for our highest good or not. And for the most part, humans have not really tapped in to that experience yet because we haven't been put in those positions. But it very much appears, again, if you're looking at the web data, suggesting that maybe this summer or by the fall, we're going to have these conversations in a much bigger way, which is going to put a lot of stress on us here on this community to really use that discernment and to be there as guiding lights for people who are also just going to wake up to this fact and who are going to have to swallow this big red pill in a very short period of time. Speaking of the Firewalk, I brought this up. This is the picture of me walking on fire a couple of years ago. And what you mentioned was interesting. You go through this process to detox and purify not just your body, but also your intentions, your missions, perhaps past oaths that you've taken in past lives that are hindering your process in this particular incarnation. I want to have your take on that. So, Retta, before we do that, I need to bring up the wonderful and beautiful sponsor for tonight's show. Of course, it's Carla from Ascension Organites. Let's see what this new Nova Pyramid has in store for you guys here from Carla at Ascension Organites.
Hello, everyone. This is Carla from Ascension Organites. I hope you're doing great. Today, I have a new piece to show you. This is the little companion of a special edition pyramid for the spring equinox or the astrological new year. So this piece is very similar to that, but just in a different format. The name is Nova. It is made of chrysoprase, green jade, unakite, and bloodstone with brass and copper metals and the Merkaba symbol in gold for protection. So the spring equinox is all about new beginnings, new transitions, making changes. So this piece will help you stay in the now present moment, bring you abundance, bring you protection, and surround you with the spring magic. I'll give it a quick turn so you can see it.
Staying in the now.
And there's Nova. I hope you guys like it, and I'll see you soon.
I think we very much need that. Thank you so much, Carla. I appreciate this. And of course, guys, if you're looking at getting one of these amazing creations in your own possession, you can do so here at ascensionorganites.com. And if you use coupon code BeyondMystic, you'll get an extra 10% off. And in terms of the questions for the audience members this evening, we will be giving away this pyramid before the end of the show. So please use the PayPal tip jar if you think it is of value to you. And of course, we want to thank ahead of time here everyone supporting this show here on YouTube. So Retta, so going back to this idea of, we just had this full moon meditation, of course, with Elena and Janine here on the show a couple of weeks ago. And the theme was detox and purification. Now, from your point of view, I know you've been going through some of those symptoms as well. Speak to the audience members here about different practices. One would be extreme, the walking on fire. We can get back into that as well. And other practices that you use in your life that could be just as beneficial, but are very much needed at this time. Because if we are in that birthing process, the Taoists usually say, if you put a how do I say it in English? If your energy is not clear, you are manifesting with polluted energy, right? So whatever you're creating in this birthing process will be attached to some of that old pollution that needs to be detoxified and purified. So it's very important this time, knowing as we're going into this birthing process, that we are creating as best we can with pure and detoxified energy. Speak to that a little bit for the audience, SOLRETA.
Yeah, so this has actually come up in nearly every single reading that I've had just over the last couple of months. So on a collective level, we really are simultaneously purging together. I just got this vision of like an ayahuasca ceremony where we're all just purging together on a spiritual level. But yeah, what I'm seeing is the Knight of Wands card for me will come up consistently when it's to do with breaking down old subconscious fears, belief systems, priming for the firewalk. So what I find that works best in part of my practice is hypnosis. So every morning, every night, I do either, a real big, deep binaural theta hypnosis type session. So we can do that through self-hypnosis. We can do it through finding someone that we really vibe with. But what I'm seeing is it's reconditioning the mind ready for this new reality. So with this new version of reality, we all have trauma and different belief systems and blueprints that were imprinted on us, either past life, through our ancestry that was passed down to us, or before the age of 7. And sometimes after that, we'll also have, further events and traumas and things. So if we can identify...
Hold on just a sec. Why the age of 7? I missed that part.
No, I didn't go into it. Just there's a lot there. So yeah. What we see, even with my background as a kinesiologist as well, because I've done that for 20-something years now too. But what we quite often see is the way that we grow up before the age of 7 is usually kind of passed down to us through our parents. So we might be, so one example would be from my own self, being told that, oh, she's so shy, or my mum being shy and then sort of projecting that onto me. Oh yeah, she's really shy like me. And so what happens is we tend to have that as the lens in which we see the world, or we grow up in, a traumatic environment. And so the lens that we take out to the world is filled with trauma. It's not safe. Or even for examples of growing up, to be seen and not heard which is what I'm seeing come up a lot in client sessions at the moment. So it's to actually kind of break that down. So that's where hypnosis works the best. I also do specific release work in my psychic reading sessions, where we actually will identify the exact emotion. And it usually keeps going back to before age 7. That's just what I keep finding. But if we look at it in terms of what Rudolf Steiner talks about, between 0 to 9, we have what's called a crossing. And the other spiritual beliefs, whether it's in Aboriginal culture, they believe age 5, that our auras are still joined with our parents. So everything that our parents are going through emotionally, or what we're sort of seeing them go through physically, spiritually, mentally, is imprinted onto us. So that's our lens and what we take out as an adult in the world, or an adolescent. So we tend to attract the experiences that will validate and make that true. So we have to bust that old blueprint, that matrix that's been imprinted to us, form a new one. So in order to do this, it really is about getting outside of the physical body into this higher quantum state. So that's where hypnosis is that doorway that opens the gateway into other potential realities being possible, but we have to choose it for ourselves. And that's where the language comes in. And that's where the programming in the positive sense comes in. So hypnosis closes the gap between old version of self and new version of self, so that we start to get that template reconfigure for the positive one.
I love that. Now that makes a lot of sense. And I was just reminded in my earlier years in politics that I just realized, holy shit, this is more than 20 years ago. I had been part of this working group. This is June 25, 2001, by the way. The Harris government commits sums of money here for kids support. It was called the Early Years Challenge Fund. And oh shoot, I just had it. Oh yes, there. For the critical first 6 years of development of the lives, and for francophone or for French-speaking people in Canada, we had been going through this process of being assimilated by our culture. Everything we're bombarded on a daily basis was the English language, and for not rural and remote communities, although those were part of it, but for minority or linguistic minorities, and for people to be able to stay steeped strong in their culture, those first 6 years or the first 7 years are absolutely critical. This was all about it. I was so proud to work for this, even though it was a government program. I thought it made a lot of sense for linguistic minorities and preserving all of that rich and beautiful culture here in Canada. So when you said that earlier, it brought me back, and I realized, oh my God, 20 years, it's been such a long road.
It's gone fast. And that's amazing, JC, that you were, within, it's almost like another lifetime or another character that you played, that you were still helping, with awakening people to things like that. And we see there's a thing that Rudolf Steiner talked about called the crossing. And what happens sometimes if we experience trauma, why we're separating from our parents' aura. So in Aboriginal culture, they usually believe around 5 years old. In Steiner's philosophy, it usually is 7 to 9. So if something impactful happens around that, it greatly will impact the matrix or the blueprint version of who we are. And I saw someone in the comments say, what if we don't have parents? So it usually is whoever is around you, or whether it's, even
caregivers.
Yeah. And sometimes it's even, other people in the extended family and that too, if it's kind of, if we look at it from a baby opening their eyes and everything they see around them, that's what imprints. So what's interesting, if we look into other different cultures, like in African culture, or I think there's a tribe called the Kojas, and they're taken, certain children are put into a dark room, and it's not until the age of 7 that they actually come out and have that veil removed. So they're taught fully how to see within the third eye, how to use this light that's within to light everything else. So they can totally see in pitch black. They can see auras, everything. So imagine if we shift.
It can make very powerful children. Wow.
Definitely. Wow. So these are kids that you cannot tell false stories to. They literally see with the true eye. So imagine if we supported kids up until 7 to 9 more in a spiritual philosophy rather than imprinting on the mental part, having to do math and reading and writing. And that's all fundamental. Like, we absorb and soak everything into our brain. Because of my background working with a bit of the neuroscience side of things and kinesiology and that, we imprint everything into our brain and absorb like sponges before that age too. So our auras are tied in with our parents. We're developing all of our brain, our neural network pathways and connections. But imagine if we had that healthy template and imprint from the start, and were really fostered and encouraged like baby Jedis.
I could just imagine. Man, I wish I had more time. I was working oh my God, 60, 70 hours a week when my kids were that age. I wish I would have had more time to do these things with them that I know now. Although they were inculcated and encouraged to use their psychic abilities, and we did play some games to help them at that level. But I could just imagine, knowing what I know now, being able to share that with young children. That would be amazing. You just mentioned earlier, wow, it's been a long road. While I'm looking at those pictures of the Firewalk, this is also early 2000s. I was at the time hired by the province to recruit internationally trained workers to fill some of our labor shortages gaps here in our province. And so I got to travel the world, and I was looking for those unique pearls. And it was so amazing because I got to see and feel and hear, as you know, I hear people screaming at me all the time psychically. And so when I was put into these big rooms of people trying to get my attention, to basically go through the immigration process and economic integration process to come into Canada, you can just imagine how I was bombarded with psychic messages. This is somewhere in sub-Saharan Africa. I forget where this picture was taken. This one, I believe, is probably Belgium. I think it was, because we also did French-speaking countries in Belgium to try to recruit. And that brings us into what you were saying earlier about the Monroe Institute and the portal of the third eye, because we need to Well, first of all, here in Montreal, the Monroe Institute, for a lot of researchers, they would suggest that it's been infiltrated. You talked about those three-letter agencies, knowing that these are the keys to perhaps this simulated realities. On one hand, these institutes have been infiltrated for two reasons. One, probably to recruit people to bring into those dark projects, and two, most likely also to thwart people from really understanding and getting access to the keys of this simulated reality. So let's talk about that as well. When we're in these groups, when you and I are doing these live groups here, we are often using that third eye to communicate with everybody watching us live. And that does present a problem, and it also presents an opportunity. So I'm not sure where you want to go with that, but I'm being guided to have this conversation with you, because it is a big experiment for us to be sharing ourselves openly live like this, but also receiving all the messages, not just from the people watching live right now, which is a good number, but everybody watching on replay, and the echoes through all of the different multiverses and how that affects us, or auric field and all of that. So tie that into the Monroe Institute, the understanding that we're all connected, and how we have to navigate through all of that as we're, again, going through this birthing process.
Yeah, so it's funny that you mentioned that. And I think, it just goes back to that synchronization you and I have, in that I was feeling a lot of, loving, supportive energy from the audience. So I literally physically will feel energy kind of step in, and I'll feel like love and support come in from, our spiritual teams as well. And I think that it's really important to state, the reality that we wish to unfold. So for me as a child, going through a lot of, ET contact, and a lot of seeing otherworldly beings from, from the youngest age, being clairvoyant, a lot of the time I was scared and I was frightened, because I didn't have anyone to tell me like what it was, or my parents that come into my room, they can't see the things that, that I could see. But what was interesting, when I was within the astral realms, or I was within the dream world, and having those very lucid dreams as a young child, even into teenagehood, I would have reoccurring experiences in the astral realm. And it was usually these beings that would want to tap in and siphon energy off people that they saw as a bright light, or more kind of like psyche. So in that dream experience, they appeared to be more like vampires. And they would always come like really, really close. And then they would say, "We can't touch her, she's protected." And then I would learn how to fly in the dream, and kind of like push off from the wall, as though it was like, swimming in a swimming pool when you kick off from the wall. So even as an adult now, I know that I'm fully protected, because I went through those astral experiences. I went through where they couldn't touch me. So, saying things like this and having that belief system that I am safe, I'm protected, surround yourself in that beautiful golden light, do regular frequency shifts of where we actually kind of like vibrate up at least 2 levels from where we're sitting. And it's just like a radio dial. I think we talked about this in many shows that we've done, where you pick a color, you pick something, or the shape or a feeling, and just feel your energy turn as though it was a radio station to a new dial. So I think that's super important when we are connecting in these spaces, because you can sometimes feel darker things, almost like looking over the shoulder of the group going, "Oh, what's happening, over this part of the corner of the internet." Oh, your mic.
Sorry, I was coughing there. I was going through some throat chakra clearing while you were saying that. In this episode, I just produced last week, I believe it was, with Meg. Let me see if I can bring it up on the screen for you guys here. What's this called again? Manifest Reality with Meg. We talked about tulpas and egregores. And it was interesting, because as we're seeing this compression here of maybe some help at the galactic level coming down, bringing that frequency, that higher frequency, to the surface of the planet, we're also seeing the planet bring up its frequency and squeezing the negatives between that reality. And they're all scouring for places to hide, as they're jumping out of bodies right now that are no longer aligned with them. It's called souring the milk, so to speak. First of all, what are your thoughts on these tulpas and egregores, and how perhaps right now is more critical than ever to have this conversation, to be aware of them, to put up our shields against them, because they are running out of places to hide and to continue their livelihood. They are very much attached to us individually and collectively in the case of these bigger egregores. Not just to siphon off our energies, but to continue living. They are in survival mode. And as the planet is changing frequencies, there are less and less instances and opportunities for them to survive. So there is a frantic move right now, and they are trying desperately to find those cracks of darkness, seeing as all of this light is coming up. Speak to that concept here. We have about 10 minutes left in the show, Soretta, but I think it's important to bring it back to this audience and members as well, in terms of how important it is to recognize that right now, to send it love, those egregores and those tulpas, so that they go to their perfect place as they are fighting for their survival here, and not realizing that they don't belong here anymore and that they don't serve us. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I guess I'll start with just the vision that I've got and what I kind of work with in a shamanic way. So for many years, I've used the practice of visualizing a column of white light just out on the front of the street off my property. And if I've seen anything that doesn't feel like it's there for the best and highest good, or experienced, waking up with feeling some kind of something that's not supposed to come into a dream or reality space, shifting it. So I always will do the frequency shifting, but visualizing this column of white light and telling anything that's not supposed to be here to go into that. And I always see it like an elevator to source. So just seeing it as like a lift that takes off into source. So it is good at first to identify it, or to, if you feel anything that's more in the unseen, looking at it from sort of like a higher council point of view. The way that it was shown to me with the franticness of everyone collectively kind of scrambling and, the sky is falling. I saw these things jumping in and out of people as well. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. And I did manage to catch a little bit of that show with you and Meg. It was such a great episode. And I love Meg and Julie and Sophie and Janine and everyone. They're just,
by the way, you did an absolute fabulous job stepping in when Julie was away on the staff retreat there doing the Divine Feminine Oracle shows. The three of you really knocked it out of the park. It was really, really an honor to see you guys and your energy together, Meg, Sophie, and yourself. You did a great job, Soretta. And I really recommend people, first of all, yes, go see this episode of Manifest Destiny. It was March 9th, but go and watch the last two Divine Feminine Oracle shows. They were really, really good. What was your feeling of being part of this community? I don't think I've had the opportunity to ask you, actually. I know that you and I had been talking about this off air, how you kind of, how do you say that? You had a premonition of doing these shows a couple of months ago, and you kind of put it aside. And then when I brought it up to your field as an opportunity last month, you realized, oh my God, I've actually dreamt about this. It's now coming true. Explain that to the audience members, how we're so amazingly connected there.
Yeah, and it's so funny because even going back to years and years ago, having separate people say, oh, I've had a vision of you as an oracle in a past life. And I saw, all these people coming up to you for advice, and you just connected to source, and you had this wisdom where you had these answers that you didn't even know logically. So I'd had, even kind of energy setting up towards divine oracle work years and years ago. And I do have memories of doing that in a past life space. Not exactly the grandma giving the cookies out in the Matrix. I work a little bit different to that. But yeah, I had visions of, and I forgot, because a lot of the time when you receive the visions, and this is what I love, is that the more conscious we can become around the messages that come through from higher self, from the universe, from the divine, higher loving frequencies, when we kind of wake up within that message and that dream that's coming in, because it will appear a little bit dreamlike, the more that you can focus and become awake within that, the louder that it becomes and the easier it is to hear. So it's like when that softness comes in, or that those messages, if we can sort of stay within that glowiness and that feel, we can really dive into the message so much deeper. So I sort of was busy. I don't know what I was doing, whether it was with the kids or whatever, driving to school or something. But I just remember like having this vision come in of being on the Divine Feminine Oracles and feeling myself connected with the gorgeous girls. And so then when you, asked me, I'm like, this has already happened. It was almost like, tapping into a future timeline that had already happened. So it was perfect.
Yeah, really cool. I'm really excited to see you growing here in the community and seeing the community here, the new community, also understanding and appreciating all of your amazing talents, SOLRETA. You're absolutely near and dear to my heart, and I know that when you speak, people listen. So I'm really happy to do these shows with you. Hey, Trixie says, JC, you can look forward to working with your grandchildren. Yes, I hope I will have time to work with my grandchildren in a way that I could have maybe with my younger children when I was so deep in the matrix. So yeah, that's a great point, Trixie, and it brings a smile to my face for sure. The winner for tonight's amazing pyramid from Carla at Ascension Organite is, hold on, I had the word. Janice Link, thank you so much for the PayPal donation. You're amazing. And I just sent your email address here directly to Carla, who I think is in the show right now. So Carla, if you want to send Janice an email letting her know how to send her this pyramid of yours, that would be really amazing. So big thank you to you, Carla, supporting the show, and a big thank you to all of you also supporting us in the live chat. Now, another really, really important and amazing way to support the show, of course, is to support the content creators here, including the amazing SOLRETA. SOLRETA, what do you have right now for people who are, again, we're talking about all these crazy, frantic energies. Let's talk about your booking sessions here on SOLRETA.com. What you have for them, what particular package might be more of interest to them right now, and how that can support you, of course, doing all of the work that you're doing today.
Yeah, so in order to help people and to be able to see a few more people at the moment as well, I've cut back on the 2-hour sessions also so I can conserve some energy, because like Penny Kelly, I was in hospital recently too. So, you know, and a lot of us, like with my clients too, it's like we've had that death of the old. So I do feel that like I have stepped into a new version of self, which, you know, feels amazing. And it was, yeah, really freaky to go through that transformation and to have that choice, like whether I wanted to stay or whether I wanted to go. And of course, like I chose to stay because I still have a lot of work here and, you know, have my kids and everything too.
Sure.
So yeah, I would say the 1.5 hours, so the 1.5 hour session would be the go-to. We do an aura drawing energy assessment right at the start. So I go in and describe like past life energies and things that are coming up. I describe like higher dimensional frequencies that are also coming in. We look a little bit sometimes into more of like the guides and that are coming around and supporting, or these other multidimensional parallel lifetimes, what they have to say that will assist us in the here and now. We also will break contracts and agreements from anything that might be holding you back, which is super, super important in order to quantum jump into that best and higher version that we need right now to go not only in the present, but for future.
Definitely.
So yeah, we do cards in the reading. We talk to spirit, talk to guides. And I love the work. The most satisfying thing is, you know, when I'm talking or reading about something and my clients are like, that is so weird. Like, how did you see that? Or how did that come up? Or that's amazing. Like that synchronicity between what you're reading in a past life and what's coming up in this lifetime. It's like the same pattern. So yeah, I just adore and love my clients. To me, they're like soul family, and I can see quite a few in the audience. So I just want to.
Yes, and Stacey's in the chat now. She's saying her sessions are absolutely amazing. I have to say, I had my personal session with SOLRETA. So did Sarah here. We absolutely love her aura drawings, and it's a very unique session. You're very different, and I don't want to compare you to Meg and Sophie. Of course, one is more in the tarot, one is the astro, but you blend all of this together, including maybe higher dimensional and galactic influences in all of these readings. And of course, today, that soul contract, that soul mission, the starseed origin, those topics are pressing down on us because we're all hands on deck, and we need to be engage, actualize, and engage into this birthing process, all of us together. So your readings bring a different dimension and a different feel. Lisa DiMartino says, yeah, she's very gifted. Guys, we've had bookings. I know John Kress is in there somewhere too. Share your experience with the other people who are maybe new to the channel of how all of these amazing bookings with Sarah, with SOLRETA are absolutely amazing. So check it out. And SOLRETA, do you have a coupon code available for the people using the booking app here at SOLRETA.com?
Yeah, so I've got the one that we have for Beyond Reality. So using BeyondMystic in all caps, we'll get 10% off sessions.
Okay, very good. And AC says, Soretta, thank you for sharing your light with us. I agree. Soretta has a lot of light to
Thank
share.
you.
Thank you so much. Diane says, thank you, JC and Soretta. Amazing show. Yes, thank you so much. And guys, speaking about the show, if you like it and you think it's important, again, when we say we're all in this together, and I mentioned this earlier doing these live shows together, why it's so important, it's because we're gelling and we're creating this consciousness field together. And so on one hand, yes, we are very much pushing this message outward through consciousness, even though people are not physically hearing or seeing our message. But it is also very powerful for them to hear the spoken word. So if you think these episodes are powerful and are important, share them with your friends and loved ones who you think might benefit from hearing some of these messages right now, seeing as we are in these critical times of this new birthing for humanity, if you want to call it that way. So a big thank you, everyone, for supporting the show. Please join us tomorrow. I believe I have Dick Algeier on tomorrow for the Bank Warfare remote viewing of the end, so you don't want to miss that. Later this evening, of course, in about an hour from now at 7 o'clock Eastern, we've changed the time slot there. The Divine Feminine Oracle Show is back on, so you want to check that out here on YouTube. And I believe Friday, Bruce Cesal is going to be back. I believe we had a little mishap in the last show, but I think he's back on for this Friday. You don't want to miss that. And of course, Thursday, I wanted to bring your attention also. If you haven't seen these new War Correspondence series, please do go check it out. This is on Rumble only, simply for the nature of the conversations we're having there. So ready to speak about this. Mr. Lieutenant Colonel retired Ricardo Bossi is one of our analyst guests on the show. He's been absolutely amazing in the first 3 inaugural episodes here. Speak about your view, how impactful he is in your neck of the woods, and how it's absolutely amazing to watch these shows here to understand how humanity is moving into this 6th generational warfare where we're all becoming the witch and using our psychic abilities here to fend for ourselves and to be the cavalry we are all waiting for.
Yeah, so I might have to be a little bit careful on the language. Just don't want to say certain things that might flag certain bots. But yeah, so over here when we were having, you know, how you guys had the truckers convoy and everything that happened in your main capital, over here in our main capital, we had, I'm not sure if it was rumored to be like around 2 million or 1 million or something like that in our capital, which I think was a lot smaller than what you guys had. But, you know, Ricardo actually went up there. So what I heard from people and friends and that were up there was that he was there with his family and, you know, really just sort of boots on the ground. But whenever I'd seen him speak, and I have heard other people talk about him being, you know, a potential in terms of like, you know, positive leadership and things. I do see a spiritual energy with him. It's, you know, I don't just feel the military background and his understanding and knowledge to do with that. I actually do feel that there's a spiritual mission for him to fulfill. So sometimes I'm just getting tingles as we talk about it. Yeah, it does feel like that he's actually fulfilling his spiritual mission in the work.
And it was funny after in the after show, I think of the second episode, it might have been the first one too. We all after the live was finished, Janine, Recorder, and I were like, "Oh, we've done this before." It came so clear in our mind that, oh my God, we had already done this before, perhaps on other planets, going through the same process. And it was really, really cool that we found ourselves in. And if you watch those episodes, you'll see the synchronicity between the three of us and how we absolutely gel together. Fascinating show concept, guys. Please do go check it out. And also, oh yes, I have to bring this up for the audience members. Tarot level number 3 by Janine. There's still some time here. The coupon code Tarot 3 until March 16. And March 16 will be the first live workshop with Janine. So if you've already taken level 1 and 2 and you want to take part in level 3 here to include those live teachable sessions with Janine, you still have time. So you have two more days. So Tarot 3 is the coupon code for Tarot level 3. And of course, this Thursday, if you're logged in there, of course, to BeyondMystic.academy, you will be able to take part in these live training sessions here for the Tarot readings with Janine. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us here tonight. Of course, if you want to follow the beautiful Soretta, you can do so here on YouTube at Soretta Ontario. And of course, you can book a session with her. And please, I beg you to do so and help her support all of the amazing work that she's doing here as well. You can do that at Soretta This was Simulated Reality with SOLRETA. It's my third show today. Can you tell? I'm starting to lose my voice. I love you guys. Thank you so much. SOLRETA, I love you as well. Have a great evening, everyone, and we'll see you soon. Au revoir.
Thank you.